recording what is being said and to share the information as to what happened in the last meeting.
I think it's also provides accountability.
And Susan added that it provides accountability.
Yes.
And yeah.
I also think
Somebody
it's important.
else?
Yes, I think it's, I like to reiterate everyone and what they've said so far. And I think it's also a good idea to note who made note of what, if there's like a new idea that is new to the group or hasn't been discussed, who brought it up. And that way, if we have questions and we're really not sure of all the background, we know who to go to that has that firsthand knowledge.
This is Patty again. The other thing I would add is that it's good to capture action items, and that would be a place that you could do that so that we make sure to follow up on the action items and assign them to someone, as well as a time period when the action item should be done.
So following up on that, Patty, the question I would ask is, do you feel that the partnership committee structure needs to be reformalized, or are you comfortable with the informal structure that it has gone to? In terms of who has authority to vote, who has those kinds of things.
I personally did not know that there was no structure anymore to the partnership. So I heard what you said. I'm not going to contradict that, but I was not aware of that.
Okay. So all right, well, let me ask you, do you believe that who should have a vote on the partnership committee?
Can I just add, just to maybe help clarify? So I think what you're telling us, Melody, is that in addition to partnership reps representing churches, there are other people that participate in the meeting. And so sometimes it's unclear who's being a partnership rep and who's attending because they're a very interested person in wanting to know what's going on.
That would be, yes, Rick, that would be correct. I can tell you the attendees from the last one, Patty and Alan Morrell, Patty representing Osterville, Alan being the rep alternate, Lisa Lancer, Wayne Malik from Oakton, Lisa being the rep and Wayne being the rep alternate. Staff members, Melody Curtis and Laura Horvath. Cindy Cook, who is a key volunteer. Jess Mills, key volunteer from Flores. Susan Anderson, key volunteer from Flores. Rick Sprout from Flores, who's the partner rep and also the Church Partnership Committee co-chair. Ginny Wagner from Huntsville, Alabama, who is a Goodwill ambassador. Dave Lewis, who's the Facilities Committee chair. Dave Brewster from Braddock Street, who is the partner rep. Cindy Steiner from St. Stephen's, who's the partner rep. Susan Custer from Woodlake was the partner rep. And Karen Roman from Colleyville, partner rep. So we had a mix of individuals in the room. And the question that I have for all of you is, who should be voting on matters of the partnership committee? And you don't necessarily have to answer at this time. If you have something to contribute to that, at this time, it would be a good time to talk about it. Otherwise, I would recommend that you email Rick and myself. Rick, do you want to provide your email?
Yeah, I'm okay doing that. It's risprout2@gmail.com.
So just for clarity, in the past, did we follow like Robert's Rules of Order or anything like that? Or was it just whoever was at the table kind of voted?
I don't know. Patty and Rick, you can both answer. In the past, when there was a formalized process and partner reps were part of the governance board, how did you conduct meetings?
I don't think we have voted on anything for a long time, so there hasn't been a vote. But in the past, when there was a vote, I think it was each partner church that was represented would have one vote. But I think additionally, if it was something that, wasn't a really huge matter or something really important, there would also be a consensus from the group and discussion with people who were participating in the meeting, whether or not they're officially a partnership rep or not.
Okay. Any other comments?
So my only other comment would be, when I started participating, I had a difficult time discerning who was a partnership rep, who was, an eager participant. I think that the lines of communication or who's taking actions, it's probably a little bit cleaner, if an action or communication step is being done by the partnership rep back to the church. It just helps for a clean communication line. So I'm personally a little less concerned about voting on things during a meeting and more about how do we get these, 16 key reps, how do we all work together and how do we communicate back into our churches effectively and carry that voice. That's why I think it's helpful to kind of have that identification, if you will, during the process.
Okay.
So my question is, do we understand what partnership rep responsibilities are? And maybe Rick just said it, to carry the information back to the church. Is that all? And maybe that would help with who is going to be voting, if there is something to vote about. But what are the partnership rep responsibilities?
And Karen, let me tell you that is actually a question that has changed, because while the partner reps had specific responsibilities at one time when they were part of the government, the responsibilities as spelled out are no longer consistent. Sorry, internet connection is unstable. That's one of the things that kind of got altered in the process, but nobody addressed it specifically. So I am very interested in making that much more specific, so people actually understand what are the expectations, what are you being expected to do, and are we providing you with the right tools for you to be able to do it?
Hey guys, it seems to me there used to be a kind of like a notebook that has a listing of the different positions and responsibilities. I know that has been some time ago, but you're actually confirming something that I suspected, but I'm glad it's being brought out in the open now. Thanks.
Yes, no, there was a notebook, and there were responsibilities, and they weren't updated when the nature of the relationship changed, and that's the problem. It needs to be clear so that we're doing our job for you. Because when I came on board, the most exciting thing I heard about was the partner churches. It was the most fascinating and exciting part of the way this organization operates. And then I started to try and figure out exactly how that works, and I realized there's a lot of ambiguity about it. So that I see it fixed. So we're communicating. All right. So for those of you who are not partner reps, and this is your first time attending a meeting, I apologize that we spent so much time talking about this. But a lot of the work that I'm going to be doing on behalf of the organization over the next year has to do with making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing for our partners. And so I need to start with this firm foundation. And I'd like to discern that. So I appreciate you sticking with me through this discussion.
Melody, this is Patty
Yes.
again. Just real quick about the action items. I don't think there has to be a vote on something to be an action item. For instance, when you say on the phone, I'd like to hear from people either now or by email, like emailing Rick or you, I think that's an action item. So I think if these things can be captured, maybe at the end of the minutes, that the action items can be pulled out. I think that can be very helpful for people to know what is their role after the meeting, if they have.
Patty, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we had a little funny electronic thing. It did sound like you were rapping for a second.
I can assure you I was not.
I was really impressed.
Okay. I appreciate that. I agree. If we don't capture that information, like Susan said, there's no accountability, there's no follow through. We don't know what was decided. So we do need to capture that. I agree, absolutely.
So Melody, in keeping with that, so I think there is an action to send the meeting minutes from December out so that it's communicated to all of the partnership reps.
Yes.
And action, and so I'm going to put this out, maybe, is there an ability for you, Melody, to take an action that sends out a, what we think is a updated version of roles and responsibilities for partnership reps so that each of the churches can review that?
There will be right after our discussion on Tuesday, Rick.
Okay. So, but from this meeting,
yeah.
The staff will send out or I, Melody, we will send out a description of roles and responsibilities, and then the action for each of the churches is to comment on the meeting minutes process and comment on the roles and responsibilities. And so
absolutely.
That gives us 3 actions out of the first 5 minutes.
Well, first 30 minutes, but yeah.
I would just add that I think having a standardized document for meeting minutes is important, and then hold accountability to whoever is taking minutes out. Did that role change from meeting to meeting, including things like plans, dates, and start and end time with actual date and the start time, action items, bottom, attendees, and process at the meeting.
Okay. All right. We'll use that.
Thank you, Melody.
All right.
I don't know it for a fact, but I suspect that the time of when these changes began was somewhat tied to or close to the proximity of when the mechanism on how mission trips were being paid for was changed. As I say, I don't know if that's the exact timing, but I suspect that may be close to when those changes were made.
I actually, Dave, I can't pinpoint it. I think it was a slide, just a general slide, and maybe a consequence of having had multiple executive directors over the course of the last 5 years. So those two things combined, between the way the organization changed and then multiple changes of leadership may have had a piece to do with that. But I'm not leaving for a long time.
And we are where we are now, so now we're just going to
fix it.
Yep.
Yep. All right. So I think you all know that, thank you all for that discussion. I think you all know that Cynthia Grant is our financial specialist for programs, and she provides program oversight. We also conduct monthly treasurer's audits of HCW financials. The treasurer and I sit down with our accountant, and we go over the last month's expenditures and Then we have an annual audit by a certified public accountant. We issue formal financial statements, and those are available on our website and through public resources. Anyone who wants a copy of those is entitled to them because we are a public non-for-profit. So if you're interested in our 990, you can get a copy of that. If you're interested in our financials, and those are all available as soon as they are available to the general public. They're on our website. So good news. Where are we at? Why won't this let me go forward? Here we go. Good news is that our donations right now are up by 5% over last year. The partnership giving has been consistent over the last 2 years, but we expect an increase this year, in part because of our focus on renewing our partnership commitments with all of our partners and going out and touching base with everybody, and in part because we're going to be recruiting new partners. And we have several new partner churches that we've identified that we're working with. We are going to start growing again. So we've been at 16 and holding for a while. I expect that number to grow to 19 by 2019. So look for that. We increased the number of events in 2017, and you will see that, for those of you online can see my pointer, for those in the room. The events in 2017, that's our net amount. It was basically $60,000 more because of our increase in our number of events. We expect to increase that net amount again this year because Samar Winship is doing her job, and she is starting even more events, and she wants to have a conversation with the folks in Richmond about that. To have a Richmond-centric event. A lot of our events have been in Northern Virginia, and we're going to reach out. We're going to get our folks in Richmond. We're going to reach out to our folks in Texas. And we're going to try and increase the number of activities that we do with our partners where you live, as well as at our headquarters. That's, again, a comparison of where we have been for the last 2 years, and where we're looking to go next year. We raised more money in 2016 than we did in 2017, but we spent more money in 2017 than we did in 2016. So we are looking for a year in between those two right now in terms of expenses, until we can start growing those funds, so we can grow again. I apologize for those of you who cannot see these numbers. We are at the 2018 budget, and I apologize, the numbers are tiny. I can't even read them. For 2018, we anticipate that individual giving will be about $190,000, partner churches $250,000 approximately. We're going to focus on sponsor a child. We're going to raise that number by the number of children we have left to sponsor, and Kathleen will talk to you about that later. And then in terms of expenses, we look at spending about $1 million this year, which is, like I said, between the amounts we spent in the last 2 years. And now, the stuff you really care about. And I'm going to turn it over to my program staff. And let me tell you, Mercy Hospital has got some exciting stuff going on.
You want me to do that, or?
We've got Kim. We have Kim. I don't know if she can actually talk. and she can't see the slides, so
That's
it's not fair to ask her to do that.
Okay, that's true. All right. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that picture you're looking at, for those of you who can see the slides, is
They can't see it.
Can't see it in the room. Sorry, we've got two different slide presentations going because we have our technology sort of strung together with duct tape and bubble gum, which is typical. Anyway, what you're seeing on the screen is the addition at Mercy Hospital. So the yellowish building on the left is the older part of the building. The lighter colored part of that building is the new OR wing, which has 2 operating theaters, some office space, some other kind of recovery rooms and things that go along with having an OR. It is very nearly completed, I think. It may be completed at this point. I think they were doing punch list kinds of things most recently, and we are now looking toward the process of outfitting the OR. The primary focus is now in enhancing medical services, discerning next steps for Mercy to become more self-sustainable, and for HCW, for those of us in the call and in the room, trying to figure out where to put our dollars for the most mission effectiveness with regard to the work that Mercy does. Oh, here we go. Well, I have to apologize. I'm out of the Mercy loop now because that's Kim's side of the house. So some of this information is new for me too. Wiring's being finished now. They're putting those swinging doors, those fun swinging OR doors in, and windows. Otherwise, just minor corrections. The waiting area is an external building and it's 90% done. It's, for those of you in the room, it's over here. off camera.
Let me take it back to those who aren't in the room.
Yeah, it's off to the right. See where that tree stump is? It's kind of over to the right of that. Let's see. And the ramp will have a new cover. That cover is not necessarily rain friendly. So.
Okay.
This is Mercy's new Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sal Amara.
You either have to give me that so I can change the slide.
Oh, or I have to do it.
Or you have to do it.
Okay. Okay. Sal received his Bachelor of Medicine and I'll just do it. And surgery from the College of Medicine and Health Sciences in 2014. He's awaiting the results of a Master's of Public Health from JALA. He's young, he's energetic, he's out of school but not green out of school. He has begun working with the doctors on the HCW board. They've had a lot of interaction together. We actually were able to, or actually SLAC was able to hire him away from a position he'd taken at Chosron Memorial Hospital in Hill Station in Freetown, but we were able to lure him to Bow. Dr. Marr is an employee of UMC SLAC. That is new. Our former doctor was employed a little bit differently, but Sal is now fully an employee of UMC SLAC. So. And the interesting thing is, apparently in Sierra Leone, if you are a member of a twin, if you are a twin, the first twin I think is Gina, and the second twin is Sal. And our hospital administrator's name is Gina, and they're not related, but we thought that was kind of interesting. Okay.
So.
And this year's stats, I'm like, why is that slide not changing? There we go. Because I didn't change it. Mercy Hospital and Mercy Outreach served over 10,000 patients in 2017. The red and green lines on the top graph reflect the fact that Mercy Hospital's emphasis is on the reduction of maternal and infant mortality. The red and green lines on the second graph reflect Mercy's mission to serve the destitute, including the students enrolled in the CRC Center program, or the Child Rescue Center program. So that's what you're seeing there. Okay. This is our nutrition program. Oh, sorry. Okay. Number of successful graduates from the nutrition program continues to climb, but so does overall enrollment in the nutrition program. Total enrolled in January was 333. By December, that number was 1,137, consistently averaging 106 and graduating 25 out of the program. So what that's telling us is the need is huge and growing, but Mercy Outreach is out there trying to meet it. Okay, so end of year stats,
Next one.
which slide have I not moved yet?
There you go.
There we go, end of year stats. Total of all programs exceed 10,000 patients and close to 20,000 patient visits. These graphs, like the nutrition programs number, demonstrate the emphasis on the mission, and you'll see that includes outreach, testing, and treatment. So Mercy's busy, and it's not just the hospital. They are out in the community.
And the focus is on maternal and infant health, and that is why you will see that our much larger numbers reflect the number of women and children over male patients. You want me to talk about that?
Oh, no, I can do that. Local income, so these are the program finances for Mercy Hospital as of the end of January of this year. Local income continued to fall below the budget during the first month of the year. However, we think that might be due to the timing of hiring our new chief medical officer and the retirement of our former chief medical officer. So that might explain the variance there.
All right. Now.
Okay. So, Child Rescue Center. This is a graphic that we put together recently. It's been incorporated into our Transformation Task Force presentation, which you'll see online, and I'll talk about a little bit later. It's been shared with the HCW board. It was so this is something that HCW staff sort of lives, eats, and breathes all the time. But when we saw it visually depicted this way, I think it was kind of eye-opening, even for those of us that know this. It's been very eye-opening as we've been visiting partner churches and having information sessions. It's been eye-opening for a lot of people, I think, because it's the first time that people realize that the vast majority of students in Child Rescue Center programs do not live at the residence. So this is, as we currently stand, 75% of students are in the child support program, 14% in the family care program, 3% in the residence currently. So obviously this was the case, the majority of children in CRC programs being not in the residence was the case before this year, even when there were 40 children in the residence who were at capacity there. It was still a very small percentage of the children.
And for those of you who can't see the slide, it shows 75% is of this pie graph reflects the children being served in the child support program. 14% is in the family care program, and 3% of the graph is the residential care program. There are even more young people enrolled in postgraduate education, post-secondary, post-secondary Promise Scholars than there are in residence. Okay. So you're going to see a slide that looks like this in a couple slides down. That's actually different. This is last year's Sponsor a Child statistics for 2017. So each year we lose some sponsors. This program, this is part of how sponsorship programs go. So every year we lose a few sponsors, or we have students that graduate or are removed from the program. Sometimes families move away, and that kind of thing. More importantly, we add new students to the roster. So this is a program that's kind of always growing and fluctuating, and there's kind of movement in and out. There have been more student-supported living outside the walls than inside, but we started the sponsorship push in 2011, and we're continuing it this year. You'll hear a lot about it this year.
Excuse me, Laura, this is Patty.
Yep.
Are there any children being sponsored who have more than one sponsor?
There are still a few kids who have.
Kathleen is answering this question. See if you can.
It's Kathleen. As Newman can tell you, there are a couple of the original sponsors back in the day. When it was more of a symbolic sponsorship. The kids, it was mostly focused on the residential students, and there were more than one sponsor assigned, sometimes to students. So, like for example, Jill and Gary are sponsoring Chemical Fana, who's also sponsored by their very good friends callers. So after 2011, really, what?
Louder.
Okay, so I'm not good with the. Patty, can you hear me?
Barely.
Sorry, did you hear what I said at all?
I think I got the gist of it. You can continue.
Okay, sure. Back in the day when the program was first started, it was more of a symbolic sponsorship, and it was also kind of alongside the Pen Pal program, and it was a very different program, as you remember. And there were more than one sponsor given to the kids because most of the sponsorships were only about the residential program, and the Newmans are here. They're co-sponsoring with their friends, the Calders. They're sponsoring Chemo Fafana. Starting when I took over the program, I really wanted to take it a different direction, and we've never added double sponsors after that time. So they're almost all unique sponsors. There's still about 12 probably of kids who were in the residence and who are now in family care who have more than one sponsor. Does that answer the question?
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Patty. Thanks for asking. Okay, now we're going to go to.
Yes. All right. So these are the program finances for the Child Rescue Center as of the 31st of January of 2018. So we're back looking at 2018 now. We are under budget in this time period currently because of the timing of post-secondary tuition payments and the impact of a favorable exchange rate. We anticipated providing more tuition payments at this point in the year than were requested from the CRC. So when that money is requested, it will of course then be released.
And there is, this is Melody, there is an unfortunate, what?
I can't go back.
Okay, there is an unfortunate situation in the timing of post-secondary tuition payments. If they're not requested, if they're not identified, then in time, then it can actually result in the child being delayed and going into their post-secondary. So we're looking at a way to resolve that in the future, and that's one of the things we're doing in working with our partners right now to make sure that we don't have that problem in the future.
So,
all right, and I think that this is a good moment for Kathleen to talk about 2018 sponsorship.
This is Kathleen again. As I think a lot of you know that last year we had a big ramp up in enrollment, so we're up over 600 kids in all levels, and the vast majority of that was through the child support program because that's how we can do the most good, and that's where the most need is. Really, the most vulnerable families might need some extra care, but most of the just need us to pay for their kids' education fees and their medical care, and we also, of course, provide spiritual mentoring and leadership classes and involvement in activities at the Child Rescue Center. Of course, our now becoming famous Christmas party where the kids can hear the gospel and see the nativity play. So the child sponsorship, the child support program is very, very popular, and their parents are very happy to get their kids enrolled in it. So that's where we really need new sponsors. We have a lot of mostly primary age kids, some junior secondary in that age group. So every year we, as Laura mentioned, there's always some attrition, and we hope that our growth is outpacing our attrition. But we're honestly, we lose sponsors and kids age out of the program. So we're trying to just keep ahead of that attrition, and our goal is to get all the kids sponsored, because if we can have all the kids sponsored, then we can grow the program even more, because there really is, as those of you who have been to Sierra Leone know, it's a desperately poor place, and this is a way that we can help people and come alongside the families without creating any kind of dependency, but just support them and help them keep their kids in school, because we just so deeply believe that education is the way out of poverty. So if we can encourage those kids and make it possible for them to stay in school. And sponsorship is just, I believe in this program so much because it's a very personal way to be invested in the Child Rescue Center, because you get to maybe meet that child, or at least write letters to them, and the letters mean a lot to the kids. And they just, it's just an amazing thing for them to know that there's somebody half a world away who cares about me and is praying for me and wants me to succeed. You can just imagine a child who is poor, they're desperately poor, they're aware of the world. They you know, they may not have a TV in the home, but they see things, they hear things, and they feel like their life doesn't matter. Why am I poor? But then they find out that they have a sponsor and there's somebody who's really speaking encouragement and hope into their life, and it is really transforming. And you will find that from the letters that you receive from them. So we have a lot of hope for this program. We're really hoping to get to 100% sponsorship, and then we can grow some more. That's it, right?
Yep.
Melody,
Microfinance.
Melody.
Yes.
I have a question, please. This is Rick.
Yes, Rick.
So I was looking at the 127 figure, and I was sort of thinking about if I divided that by 16 churches, it's sort of like if we can get 8 more sponsors from each church, that closes that gap fairly quickly.
I like the way you think.
We dig it.
But what I don't appreciate is, you know, our churches were sort of different in size and different in perspective. So maybe that's not fair to think that each church could find 8 new people.
Okay, I want to answer that question.
Can you just help me a little bit with where, and maybe you don't have to answer this right now, but maybe. Oh, okay. Help us so that we can sort of take an action, or we can take something very focused. Each of us can go back and say, hey, if our church can come up with 5 new sponsors or 8, we'll close this gap in, you know, the next 90 days.
That's a really great idea, and we'll definitely thank you for the inspiration. It's a great way, it's a manageable way to think about it. I want to acknowledge for a moment that Woodlake is by far the biggest sponsorship church, and a lot of that is thanks to Kristen, who had a big event. She had in her heart a goal of reaching 100, and because God is good, Woodlake got over 100, is over 100 sponsorships. And I don't know if they've been able to hold exactly at that level, but it's very close to 100 if it's not 100. And so Woodlake's a big church, very, very, very engaged congregation, so it's maybe a little easier for them. And they also have a very deep history with the sponsorship program, so there's a lot of witness there to it because people like the Newmans and the Shins. But then Osterville, Patty and Allen's church just recently came on sponsorship, and it's a smaller church, I think, right? Patty and Allen, and they're steadily growing their sponsorships. So everybody is pitching in a little bit. And I think there are partner churches where we don't have any sponsorship at all. And sometimes there's just a resistance on the part of the church. They just don't know if they want to bring in yet another program in. But at any time that we can get people interested in sponsoring, it's really fantastic. So it's good. I think it's helpful to think of it as breaking down between the partner churches.
So my suggestion might be, if one of the churches would like to, and I'm sorry, I forgot the person's name that you mentioned at
it was Kristen.
Kristen. So maybe there's some partnership rep that say, man, I wonder how she did that. Maybe I can go talk to her and I can go after, I mean, really, 10 more people or something. So help us help each other.
Okay, yeah.
Right? So, we've done it a little bit differently in Flores. And so how she's done it, maybe that would work for, 2 other churches, and that would sort of help them. I'm just suggesting that.
That's a great idea. Thank you so much. We'll definitely weave that into the plan.
And what do you think if we had a presentation at our next quarterly partnership meeting about how that worked? Although I would like to see that gap filled before then, but.
Yeah, so my suggestion would be if there's, maybe 2 or 3 of the church reps that say, wow, I think I could come up with a or 5, whatever the number is, and they said, well, I would like to know how she did that. Can we just get those people connected so that we can start on trying to close that 127 gap, in the next 90 days? I'd rather come back in 90 days and say the gap is now, 80, whatever.
Great, thank you so much.
Yes.
And also I wanted to say Samara's having a big Mother's Day in Northern Virginia soon, and we have a goal we hope to get a lot of kids sponsored there. So we hope to have a good report for you from that.
Okay.
Yes. And I don't know if you heard that or not, Kathleen said that our Mother's Day event is around sponsorship, and we're planning on, and we're focusing on trying to give you a good report coming out of that event of how many additional sponsors we are able to develop. We're also focusing on a new community in Ashburn to generate some sponsors.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry for interjecting there.
No, that's the point of the meeting. It's a meeting, not a lecture.
Right.
Okay. So, microfinance.
Microfinance. Really excited about microfinance, and when we go around and talk to people about the microfinance opportunity at CRC, they're very excited to hear about it. There have now been 2 classes, microfinance classes. The first one was early last year. They graduated and were given their loans, I think, in August of 2017 and have been paying them back. The picture that you're seeing now is group 2. This is class 2. They started in the middle of November with 40 members. 38 of them were women, which in a place like Sierra Leone is significant and huge. So we're excited about that. I think they're down now to 30. These classes have some attrition issues too over time. They're going to complete their classes in March. They're a little bit behind in the education part of this program because the elections kind of threw things off and delayed them a little bit. So the classes they take in microfinance have to do with budgeting and saving, how to set up a simple business and manage it, and some other things. And what our participants have told us, since we've done qualitative research with them, is that this benefits them not only in the sense of business and being able to sustain their families and pay for their expenses, but they're also learning important things about personal finances. So they're managing their personal finances in different ways now. So there's a nice extra little benefit to that. All right, slide. Okay, so here are the quick statistics for the 2017 repayment status. And you can see the blue pie chart is the amount of money that had been paid back as of the end of January. The red pie are sort of the defaulter piece of the pie. Just because you give someone a loan and get them set up doesn't necessarily mean that things don't happen. People get sick, the business doesn't do as well as you thought, or there's competition for what you're doing. So all this was anticipated. None of it has been a huge concern for us. The CRC microfinance training started in January last year with 30. By the time they finished 28 in that class. And they each received a small loan of 500,000 leones, which is about $70 US. So not a lot of money, right, but significant there. Participants are to repay their loans in full with 5% interest. They were supposed to pay those back by February 1st of 2018. At the end of January, our loan repayments are at about 60%. But we're still in contact with those folks. The CRC staff goes and visits them at their home and at their businesses. They've had the opportunity to bring them back for some retraining in a couple cases. So we're still in connection with them, in relationship with them, and those repayments may be late, but they'll come in by and large. So, slide.
It's
turn the page, it doesn't magically happen on the screen. Okay. So just kind of another look at the microfinance program finances, so you can kind of see where we are. 40% has been repaid to date. Second class is still 60%. Finishing up. 60% has been repaid. 60%, sorry. Let's see. They have presented business plans. The second class has presented business plans to the CRC staff. The CRC staff asked them to come up with a business plan, and then they sit down with them and say, well, there's 17 other people selling soap in the location where you want to sell that? Do you think that maybe a different, item would be better? They kind of help coach them through that process. So they're working with them right now. They'll probably get their loan later in March, or if the elections take some time to settle down, maybe right after Easter, which is April 1st.
And something that you might find interesting is that in reviewing their plans, this is Melody, one of the things that is considered is this an appropriate business for HCW to be investing in? And there were a couple of tobacco-related proposals, and they were nixed because they were not appropriate for investment. And so the people had to go back and come up with a different business plan. So, all right.
And here we are again.
But it's different this time.
It's different this time. Okay. So we're going to get ready to talk about the CRC transformation, which I know we've been communicating this through newsletters, blog posts, and we've had information sessions. So you've probably heard a lot about this. But I just wanted to give you an idea of how HCW has been approaching this over the past several months. Over the first quarter of the year, we've been working in collaboration with partnership church representatives, Goodwill ambassadors, and others in the creation of an elevator speech. And we all joke about that. So an elevator speech is the speech, kind of, I'm getting some quizzical looks in the room. It's the length of time it would take you to explain to Megan. Megan says to me, what do you do? Or what is the work you do? Okay, I have the length of an elevator ride to tell her everything she needs to know about CRC and Mercy. So actually, just CRC in this case. So we worked with the partner reps and the Goodwill ambassadors, and we tried to come up with an elevator speech, a short but packed full of information speech. It's a very long elevator ride, I'll warn you at the outset. But anyway, we've been working on collaborating this. After we met with the partner reps and the Goodwill ambassadors, we have had 2 information sessions that were open to the general public. You probably saw them advertised. Some of you attended. Thank you for attending. We gave it to them and said, hey, what's missing? What questions didn't get answered, or what questions do you anticipate might be asked, and how can we add to this presentation so that we cover all the bases? And that feedback's been incorporated as well. We've presented it at Otterbein United Methodist Church, and we've presented it here at River Road. We also now have it available on our website. It's on the CRC transformation page of the HCW website, so you can get it and access it and use it. If it's hard for you to access it from there and you want me to send it to you, all you have to do is send me an email and I will send it to you, but it's available to everybody, so. Okay. Oh.
This is all
I'm hard of learning, I have to tell you. So I'm going to just give you a brief kind of set the context of the CRC transformation and why we're talking about this and why we're talking about reunifying the remaining 3% of the residential children back into family care. And the context is actually a global movement. This is happening all over the world. It was brought to our attention early last year, maybe a little bit before that, when the Sierra Leonean government, working with UNICEF, approached CRC and several other children's institutions and orphanages and said, this is the direction that we would like to move in. The rest of the world is moving this way. So I'm just get a couple of quick facts. You can see up here 2.2 million children who live in institutions around the world. 80 to 90% of them actually have living parents. And one thing I learned in the process of all of this is that the word orphan doesn't mean you've lost both your parents. The word orphan means you've lost one. You're a double orphan if you've lost both. The standard of care for children around the world that's being recommended by psychologists and people that work with children and all of that is that all things being equal, best case is you live with your mom and your dad. If that isn't possible, then you live with one parent. If your parents are not available, then family-based kinship care, a grandparent, an aunt, sometimes even an older sibling is a better choice. And the other thing that's very telling, it's been kind of hard for us to wrap our heads around a little bit, is that it's actually that the #1 cause that children wind up in orphanages is because of poverty, not because they don't have someone who can care for them. It's because the person who can care for them can't afford to. And so this transformation, this transition is looking at how do we care for children, how do we do that in the best possible way. So And like I said, tons of people are looking at this: UNICEF, Better Care Network, Catholic Relief Services, Christian Alliance for Orphans. So there are organizations all over the world doing this. So the Sierra Leonean response was pretty quick. As I said, the Ministry of Social Welfare came to CRC and SOS. There have been a series of meetings, and they basically asked these organizations, you're going to need to make some plans for how you're going to transition your children out of the residence and what you're going to do after that. And CRC and the bishop kind of wanted to be on the leading edge of that. It's better, I think, sometimes to be the person or the group leading that force than to try to play catch up in the end. And so it's made things move pretty quickly for us. The blessing that we're in is that it's always been the CRC's goal to transition children from the orphanage to family care. In fact, as early as, before the Ebola outbreak happened, we were tied in 2012. We were talking about the best case scenario would be to transition a child into a family within 2 years, within no more than 2 years. And then Ebola happened, and that kind of slowed things down and presented some obstacles we hadn't foreseen. But ever since that ended, the CRC has been extremely intentional in connecting the residential children with the families that are going to ultimately be reunified with. Those families come to the CRC for workshops, parenting classes, counseling sessions. They also come for sporting events and Wednesday devotions sometimes. They're invited to activities at the CRC so that they get familiar with their child and familiar with the CRC and comfortable. And then the children have been given opportunity to spend Sunday afternoons at their families' homes, to spend the night, to spend vacations. They got to spend Christmas in their families' homes this year. So they're not only getting to know their families and getting comfortable with the surroundings that they're going to be living in, but they get to know the communities those families live in as well.
We never let Laura give an elevator speech.
I know, sorry. Okay, I'll speed it up. Okay, so this is the CRC Transformation Task Force. In October, the CRC director presented a proposal to the bishop and the CRC board. And at that meeting, Patty Morell stood up and said, I don't know if you stood up or not, Patty, but Patty suggested that, that we stand up a task force made up of Sierra Leoneans and Americans. You can see the members on the screen, who could work together to review the research and come up with recommendations to be made to the bishop about what happens with the CRC facilities and programs once the 20 children are reunified. That process is already underway. We're working with a group called One Village Partners. That's the next slide. Yeah, here we go. So you got a little bit of a timeline here. So One Village Partnership, which is based in Sierra Leone, what they do is go out into the community, collect research from the community about what are your needs, how can you best be supported. They go to various stakeholder groups within that community and they ask these questions. They are going to be training the CRC staff to do that for themselves. So, which is very important because the CRC staff will be able to go out to the members of the community in which they live and ask them, what do you genuinely need and genuinely want? That community mapping will be done in the spring of 2018. And then that research will be presented to the task force members, who's the list you just saw. And the task force will look at that. They'll look at what other organizations have been doing around the world and the ideas that come out of all of that. And they will make recommendations to the bishop in the summer. The bishop will present decisions that he's made for how he'd like these programs to go at CRC to the HCW board. And then HCW board will then decide what it wants to support based on its mission and the desires of the donors, of you all. So that's the process that we have agreed to participate in.
And so the important part to that is that last piece, which is the decision HCW is going to be making about how we fund will come from this group of people. So that's why we need to be very, very deliberate about our conversations back and forth with our partners.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you speak to any of the ideas that are being floated about
You know, not necessarily at this time because I can what I can share with you, and I can share with all of you or anybody who's interested. Just let me know. I can share with you the research about what's being done in various organizations and things around the world. We're being very intentional in waiting also before we kind of say what these ideas might be until the community comes back and says what they think the needs are. But I have more research than you ever probably even want to look at, but available about just what other folks are doing. And there's a lot of commonality around the world.
And this is Melody. Let me jump in and say we want to be very respectful of this process. And this part of the process isn't an HCW controlled process. This is totally our Sierra Leonean partners are in control of this. This is a team that was a task force that was set up by the bishop over there to work with the community there. It is not until our partners know what they want to do next that we engage around that. Now, that is not to say that we don't have, input and representation. Like Patty and Laura and Cynthia are all on that task force, but it's not our process.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So out of these information sessions, the number one question we get is, how does that change my mission team experience? And so I just want to assure you that mission teams are still going to go to Bow, to Mercy Hospital and CRC. You'll still stay in the Missionary Training Center when you travel over there. Teams will go several times a year. The way that they're going to work, and actually we've been making this transition for some time, the way that they work now is that HW staff gets in touch with the CRC and Mercy staff, and we say, hey, what do you need? What would you like a team to bring in terms of skills and expertise and that kind of thing? And they say, well, we really could use some training in what to do with women who are having a difficult labor experience. Do you have anybody who could come and help us with that? And so that helps us then put together a team of folks that can serve those needs. Sometimes they come back and they say, we need somebody to help us paint the building. We can do that too. So these different levels of skills and things that they ask for. We used to have kind of a medical focused team that went a certain time of year and an education focused team that went a certain time of year. And now we're looking at teams that are sort of mixes of all kinds of things, so whenever. We are going to have the opportunity with mission teams to do a lot more community-based projects. So whereas we've had teams who've gone to CRC and spent the entire time inside the residential facility, maybe they got up to, up the hill to go to church at Leader or into Centenary, but they didn't necessarily get out of the walls very much. Mission teams now will be able to get out, get involved in the community, visit families of the children they sponsor and other families, or get involved in community-based projects. We're excited about the summer team this year is actually going to do a teacher training summer school experience. So that instead of doing summer school with a group of kids, they're going to be teaching teachers at Kalanda Town Elementary School some teaching strategies that will potentially help improve their teaching and then have impact on all of the children that those teachers serve. So our summer team is really excited about that. We're also looking at some non-standard teams. Linda's looking at a shorter duration sponsorship trip. So it would be all people who sponsor a child, and you would go meet your sponsored child and their family at their home, spend some time with them and do some things with them, maybe come back and help with a letter writing event at CRC, and get to experience a little bit more of Sierra Leone than some of us have had the opportunity to get out and see how everyone lives. And Kathleen and Samar will be collaborating with Linda on ways of developing that, because they have multiple experiences of having been on sponsorship trips with not just our organization, but other organizations as well. So we're going to utilize the expertise we have at our disposal. Okay, a couple of communication slides. Do you want to speak to these, or do you want me to?
It's still pretty self-explanatory. We just wanted to tell everybody, please call us, write us, send us a carrier pigeon, whatever it takes. We'd love to hear from you.
Smoke signals, email.
Come see us.
Yeah, we truly want to hear from you. We want to hear what questions you have, any concerns that you might have. please don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us. We work really closely together. So if I can't answer your question, I know who probably can, and I'll put you in touch with the right people. Please, if you're not subscribed to the newsletter, make sure that you do that, because there's going to be a lot of good information coming through the newsletter. We're exploring some other ways to communicate with you in that way. I want to encourage all of you to visit the Helping Children Worldwide website. If you haven't done that recently, a lot has changed, and there's access to a lot of information. There's also access to resources. So if you want to know more about orphan care around the world, there are resources on our website now that can lead you and help you and give you some information. Mercy's got similar things going on their page too. So I encourage you to, after this meeting, get online and check that out. Check out our blog posts. Our news items there are really good too. So here's how you get in touch with us. All of our email is there, but you can also get this information from our website.
Okay.
I think that's it.
And one thing that I would like to point out is that we, from the last partnership meeting, we had some questions that went out, and we had some responses, and we had some very specific responses from Patty and Alan Morrell about things I think that we could do. There was some input from individuals also during the meeting, things that we can do to help you connect with your congregation and help your congregation connect with and we heard you, and we're implementing those things. We sent out some DVDs. We shared some DVDs with people, with videos. We're putting together a media kit and a media press kit for you. And what was the other kit? And a social media kit for you, so that you can work with your congregations in getting the information out. And sponsor a child event. Thank goodness. Back to, there we go, me. All right. Speaking of recruiting 8 new sponsors, if you look there, Otterbein Star Scholars Wall. We took a picture of that during our trip down there. And Otterbein, after having the presentation, they sponsored how many more kids?
8 more kids. And I think the really important thing to know about this is that Otterbein is a wonderful church downtown Harrisonburg. Very small church.
Very small.
But they're just super engaged, and it just goes to show how much. This goes to show how every partner church can do a lot, because this is a very small church, and they're sponsoring now 16 kids, so their ratio per congregant is very high, and they're really proud, and they're real excited about being a part of the Child Rescue Center. And they have their wall of Star Scholars, and
yes.
Everybody is welcome to make a wall of Star Scholars. If you want to make one at your church, let me know. We'll help you put that together. Woodlake would be like the wing of the Star Scholars.
Yes, it will look. Yes, we can help you make that happen for Woodlake. A lovely wall of all the stars. And then we've mentioned the Saturday, May 5th event. Samar, did you want to talk about that briefly?
Well, this event is the week before Mother's Day, so it's a women event. I can speak loud.
Okay.
A gift for her is a women event for all kind of women and mothers and daughters, that they come and enjoy the concept Point of Grace. They're going to be a market before that event. So if anybody have like a small business they want to share with the women, and to let people know about their businesses, they get a good chance when will be about 500 women will join. And the reason of this event is to bring more awareness about sponsored child. So our main focus is going to be about sponsoring child and encouraging all the women in the room to sponsor at least one child if they can.
And and the church that is hosting it, the host church is Crossroads United Methodist in Ashburn.
It's not a partner church, but
Yes.
they seem to be but we're hoping for them to be one of our partner church. So we're working with them, and they're being very generous with the way they're collaborating with us, and they really want to help in some different ways. That's going to make them partner church too, I hope. Yep.
And let me tell you the little things that partnership does for us that really matters. It's not just the great big things that you do, and it's not just, it is small things, and people reach out to be partners in ways that sometimes we don't even realize and acknowledge, which is why we're looking at how we should be defining who are our partners and what that means to be a partner church. You want to talk briefly about Rescue the Night?
Sure. So the absolutely adorable picture you're seeing on the left of 4 little sparkly lions is from Manchester United Methodist Church in Manchester, Missouri's Rescue in the Night concert, which they held last weekend, Saturday night, and then 2 more shows on Sunday morning. They are not a partnership church. They reached out to us through the advance and said, hey, we would like to make you the recipient of the love offering we're going to collect. Do you want me to?
No, not yet. I want to blow the.
Yeah, you're gesturing that you don't want to.
And then we, through social media sharing, we discovered that Pastor Jason Dooley in Virginia Beach is at Galilee, is running a marathon, his second marathon, to benefit Mercy Hospital. And when we received the notice of that, he was up to $375. Little things that we're not even expecting can mean a lot. Because an hour after we got the share, we shared it, and Pastor Jason was up to $503. I didn't check this morning to see, but I have shared it 3 more times since then. If you would be happy to share this, we have it on our website. If you have, we have it on our Facebook. If you share it, about the percentage of shares, the average share raises $35 a share. So every time somebody shares it, another $37. And that is their logarithm of this event. So every time somebody shares something, somebody else sees it on your social media, it raises more money, and this money goes directly to Mercy Hospital. So here's another surprise. Here's the big surprise, though, of all. Those wonderful children at Manchester. I don't know if you can see this number up here in the corner of the screen. Probably you can't. It says grand total so far, $10,000. Wow.
That's what we said.
and counting.
Yeah,
that's great.
Who's going out there to get them to be a partnership?
Well, yeah, we want to visit.
Yeah.
And this is just the kind of thing that that people can do with their local congregations and communities. Talking about trips, we currently have scheduled the application deadline for the October team is coming right up, April 14th. So if you want to share with your congregation the opportunity to go in mission to Sierra Leone, they've got time to join that team. The July team has already started its education process, and they're doing their training. And we are anticipating that there will be one more team in 2018 yet, and that would be the sponsorship trip, sponsor a child trip. So if you have an interest, that one's not scheduled yet. It would be a shorter trip. If you have an interest in either promoting with your congregation mission trips, there's still an opportunity to do that. Any information that we need to provide to you, this is a moment I'd like to throw it back at the partner reps. Is there something we're not providing to you that would help you to communicate this need to your congregation? And one of the reasons I'm asking that is that we had something weird happen this year. We had not a single applicant for our April trip from any congregation. So we obviously were not doing the job we need to do to support you to get the information out to your congregation. So what can we do?
I mean, I can only speak for, from Woodlake, and it's very limited. This is what we're always told. Very limited bulletin space, very limited media space. So even though I get the information from you all in a very timely fashion and push it out to the communications person, past that point, I don't have any control other than to be anal person to say, did you put it in, did you put it in, did you put it in, did you put it in? And then there's a pecking order of how everything gets in there that, again, I have no control over. So, I mean, I don't know how the other people that are in the room from other churches are on the phone. I can imagine in a small church, you can interface with your pastor, and they do it. And, we interface with our pastor quite a bit, but even he doesn't have control to be able to say, I really want this stuff about the CRC to be in before X. So that's my hands tied behind my back when it comes to,
Is it, if there is anything that you can think of that we could do to support you in that, even if that involves driving down here to have a meeting with people, we will do that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that wouldn't in any way, because I don't know.
Right.
I just think it's the massive amount of information that is coming at churches to, from children's ministries to youth, to adults, to widows, to this, that. That's the only problem I see.
Anybody, thank you, Susan, very much. Anybody else have any suggestions?
Exactly what we were saying, that reading the bullets and everything. There's some, and this church, being where there's so much involvement in everything, there is just so many putting it out there that people are going to be able to view. I mean, having it on.
And we do have on our mission page, which I'm sure the other reps do, we have a mission page that has, the dates as well as the contact. I believe it's up there. But I think it's the word Tom Berlin uses. People have to be self-feeders. They've got to go seek that information versus being passive and going, well, I didn't know that was happening. Right. Because that, you can take the horse to the water, but they got to drink the water.
Right.
And that's another problem, I think. It's not, maybe, I don't think it's anything y'all are doing wrong or we're doing wrong. It might be the apathy of people.
Well, I agree. It's probably not anything that anybody's doing wrong, but maybe we can come up with something we can do differently.
True.
And if anything, I know I get my best ideas with the water running over my head in the morning. So if you get your ideas that way too, and it occurs to you, you have Rick's email, you have my email. If you don't have my phone number, it's 703-457-0429.
I have a recommendation.
Yes.
On the IT side, I'm guilty as charged. I get so many emails.
Michelle.
Michelle again, sorry. From work, I get 150 emails a day, and that's not exaggeration. I hardly ever have time to look at my emails, which has been typed. This was my first meeting, and not because of lack of not wanting to get here. I just can't get there. The thing that we've been doing, I work in medical, we started texting. And there's a lot of these texting sites that you can use, an avenue, that you can send a text, especially for mission work. You can design it according to what you feel. But those texts can go out random, no reply. You just have to put a little stopgap at the bottom of it. It's a quicker, easier response for most of us that don't have time to go through our week, go through all this stuff. Text messaging is big. So I see you have an ID. Whoever's doing that, that's an avenue that is really, really beneficial to us. And
Okay.
from large groups.
If for those of you on the phone, if you didn't hear that suggestion from Michelle, it was for us to look at a texting communication piece and adding that into the way that we get information out.
And you send that original text, so all of you have us, cell phone numbers, most of us.
Right.
When you send it, we take the option whether we want to opt in or opt out. So once we opt in, then you're able to constantly communicate. It's much easier, and even when we get multiple text messages, if you don't want that particular one, you're finished with it, you just say stop that one and it stops. So at any point.
And for those of you who have used those texting apps, she's describing how you can opt in to get more information or not and opt out.
Millie, this is Patty.
Yes.
One of the challenges I think with the April trip was the announcement came out in September, and September is such a busy time in our church and in the life of many churches. That's when you have Sunday school starting up again, youth groups starting up again. You know, everybody's coming back up for the summer, and particularly on Cape Cod, people they don't even leave the Cape in the summer because they just want to go to the beach all the time. And so most people go to the service that we have first in the morning, and it's an outdoor service because people want to get to the beach. So I think that's a challenge. May have been one of the challenges with people seeing and thinking about, even if they saw it, they were so busy with other things, they may have not thought of considering it. I think partner church reps can be really helpful in pushing this information. For instance, in our church, a lot of people ask when the next trip is going to be, so we keep a list of those people who have ever even asked about a trip. And you can kind of push the information to them. We also have an outreach bulletin board that we can put when the next trip is coming up on the bulletin board. So those are a couple suggestions.
Thank you, Patty.
Melody, this is Rick. I have one other suggestion to give you.
Yes, go ahead.
So I think that because HCW is looking at some more kind of specific skill areas, it would be helpful to have that as a part of the announcement, right? So if I'm trying to help get nurses involved or doctors involved or social workers involved, I'm going to be a little bit more targeted at who I go talk to. And so this slide that we're looking at right now is so generic that, I'm probably not very good at going, hey, we need 3 people that are really good at IT stuff or whatever. Give me a little bit more focus on skills that you're looking for.
Thanks,
Kathleen wanted to say something.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Kathleen Shin. I think that another idea is to go through the back door through social media.
Yeah.
Our church's Instagram page, like our church's Facebook page, and then get on there and invite people to like your page, but also say, hey, it's January, sign up in April for the October trip. Because if we don't have time or room, we don't have bulletin board space, there's unlimited space on that little machine in front of your face every day. Let's look at it, right?
Yes.
Put ourselves in there.
And by the way, if you're not liking HCW's Facebook page, please do. Please go like us. We like you to like us.
That's what you can say through the back door on partner church Facebook pages.
Yep.
And what about how far in advance do the team, like right now we see through 2018 October, when will people start knowing when 2019 is out?
We start planning that now.
Yeah.
So
when the dates will be released for us, I guess what I'm saying.
to let you know what those dates are.
Yeah, when the dates
What
are,
would be helpful? What would be helpful?
I mean, 6 to 8 months in advance.
Yeah.
Because when you think about, like, I would love to go next summer, but I need to know the date, I gotta figure out the cost, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So that gives me a year.
I think that's about when they come out now, because I'm April going backwards to September.
Well, and what I was going to say is the slide you're looking at now, that's kind of what the partner reps would get, and it would normally have 4 trips on there at least. But it would give you, this is the layout of the whole year. It's not going to give what Rick is asking for, the specific. Those are the specific. We need 3 social workers. Well, we won't even. I don't think we'll say the numbers of people, but we need social workers and prenatal nurses and people who are good with construction or whatever it is. That would go in a specific announcement, because that's a little bit more coming from the field, and they won't know what we need in a year. But this is what we know we need soon. So.
So I think my question would be, how do we see that working into the timeline with the application process being 6 months in advance of the trip? We're looking for some more skilled volunteers to go. Just having traveled last year, I know it's still a process change for looking at what we're doing when we're traveling in mission trip capacity. But some project work wasn't identified until months or weeks before traveling. So.
And that still happens.
The question was, how do we look at the process of setting out what's needed when the application process itself is 6 months out? Was that basically the question? And
there's some of that we can't do a lot about, because it's just the nature of human beings. I think there are some things that we kind of know they're always interested in needing, some medical things. Some computer skills. They're always looking for a training in computers, fairly basic computer skills, Excel spreadsheets, and how to do Word documents and that kind of thing. That's usually kind of always on our list. Linda keeps a running list of what's been asked for. Every once in a while, something will pop up that'll be new, and we try to respond accordingly. And sometimes people will apply to mission trips. And for a specific thing, but then when we look through their application and we see, oh, hey, they have skills in this area, and that happens to be a need too, then we're able to have a conversation around, would you be willing to do this?
Do this,
or
rather than what you had originally thought you wanted to do.
Because this is what they're saying they need.
And a lot of the decision making on the trips and what the teams are going to do happens after we know who's going to be on the team.
Yeah.
So this is Rick. So I sort of understand that side of the dialogue. I got that, Laura. But I want you to think about Flores. So, May, I have a key communication event in May. And that's going to be the time for me to say, are you all interested in going for the December trip, which I don't have anything about? And if you're wanting me to help get Flores people that would go to the trip in the spring where they need to do an application by January, I have 3 more months and I need to start cleaning that up and pushing that in the communication cycle. So I know on your end you're struggling a little bit with specifics, but because of, and I appreciate what that other woman who I think is there in the room, I think our timing sequence is still a little bit of a challenge, because we're also doing some of this backdoor communication recruiting for mission team people. So I think we need to find some sort of a happy medium to kind of help us a little bit more, since we're struggling with our communication modes in our churches.
Right, and right, absolutely, Rick. I think you are completely right, and that is one of the reasons that I want to get out to all of the partner churches and meet with the partner reps and their pastoral team and their management team, because and try to get all those people on the same page so that I know how I need to feed into that stream.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you all for that discussion. It's very helpful for us. Anything else for the good of the order?
Oh my gosh, it was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If not,
And it's cool.
Then, Samar, I would ask you to take us from the meeting in prayer.
We thank you, Lord, for this wonderful Sunday that we all get to meet and talk and share our thoughts. We thank you for all the power you've been giving us, for all the energy, for all the help you've been giving us so many different ways. We appreciate all the people around us, with us, and not with us, and helping us in so many different ways. We know, Lord, that you have a great plan for us, and we trust you. So we thank you for everything, and we thank you for helping us, doing all that job and helping others. Amen.
Amen. All right. Thank you all for participating. Don't forget those emails that you, and we have caught some, captured some action items on our part. We will have minutes up for you to review. There will be a zip of the recording of the meeting online, and the slides will be available. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Are they done? Yeah. Yes.